Now, the MSI Profiler is the tool that enables users to attach or tag the document with the appropriate properties or metadata. The metadata or properties are what we will use later to search the document, trigger workflow activities, and other events. On the right-hand side, you'll notice the first page of the first document comes up. On the far right, all the subsequent pages of this particular document. And as you'd expect, the users can click through the different pages to view them. And you can zoom in and zoom out. On the left-hand side, you'll notice the first thing, filtering options. Now, depending on the implementation at the client, you may have multiple scanning locations, you may have multiple incoming fax numbers or inboxes. The idea behind the filtering is to enable the user to select what documents they'd like to process. So in this example, you'll see a number of different desks, if you will. The discovery desk, you'll also see intake, major discovery, and of course the unit division. Now, the thing to keep in mind here is depending on what documents you would like to process would depend on what filter you would choose. If you only wanted to process those documents that came in through intake, you would choose the intake filter. Likewise for discovery. Now, you can not only choose a document origin, but you can also decide if you want to work on certain documents scanned by a certain person. So if you have somebody scan documents for you, you could say, I only want to process those scanned by Eric, or by Joshua, or by Greg. And of course, you can use these filters together. So for a particular scan location, scanned by a certain person. I hit the set filter, and at that point, I'll only be processing documents that were brought in via that origin. As we travel down, we go to case lookup. Now you'll see a number of fields here in the case lookup box. Depending on whether or not the user knows the DA or case number would depend on their interaction with this case lookup. If they do not know the DA number, they can enter criteria here in these different boxes to help them find, the appropriate DA or case number. And they would hit the validate button. What we find is 9 times out of 10, users do know the DA number. So I'm going to enter a DA number now. And I'll hit validate. And what it will do is it'll go against your existing case management system, allowing you to validate that that is the correct case number or DA number in question. And depending on your implementation, it'll pull back certain information to allow you to understand or validate that you've chosen the right one. It'll also pull back the people that are associated with this particular case. And I could get the plus sign and select those people. And if I accidentally select those people twice, it'll let me know that, hey, you've already done that, move on. Okay? So once I've selected the appropriate people, I hit close. And if you look down here, you'll see a few other icons. Now, depending on the document we're dealing with, you may have a document that is not specific to a case, but specific to a person. That is where you would use the person doc no case button. So in other words, a mugshot or something along those lines that you want to get into the system, you want to tag it, but you don't want to attach it to a case or DA number. You only want to attach it to that person. In that case, obviously, you would not enter a DA or case number or any of this. You would simply choose the person doc option. And from there, you would go off and look up your person and attach that person or persons to that particular document, depending on the document. The trash can is the idea that simply says, I want to clear the criteria that's entered here. So if you recall earlier, we covered the fact that you can look up a DA or case number. In the event you do, and you want to clear that criteria, you can hit Clear Case Lookup Search Criteria, and it'll clear those out for you. This next button is same as previous, which we'll touch base on in a minute. So once I've set up, or if you will, attached the appropriate case or DA number, I then move to Document Properties. At this point, I'll choose a class. And depending on the class you choose would depend on what types are available. Choose a type, and depending on the type, there may or may not be subtypes, and you choose the correct one for your document. You can also enter a description, and that description can be whatever is appropriate because you'll be able to use this for searching later. So it's not just a free-form field. You can enter information. Okay, it's also a matter of being able to search that later. Allows you to put more criteria for searching on that particular document. It's not a required field, but again, it can add more value to the search capabilities. The next thing is this document available for discovery? So as we'll cover in another presentation, you can actually build a discovery package. The idea here is when I select Discovery Document, I'm basically indicating that this particular document is available to be part of a discovery package. Traveling down our icons here, we've got the Notify User icon. The idea here is I want to tell people that this document now exists. So I would select a couple of people, one or more. Select one, or I can select a couple. It'll add those people to the list. I can put a subject. And I can address the email. Now, when I hit send, what's going to happen is it's going to send an email to the people I've identified with a link to this particular document. Because obviously we're notifying people, and the notification is for people who have an ID or have access to the system, and we want to let them know that this document exists and enable them to see it. So I would hit send, and again, the notification email will go out, and it'll have a link on it to this particular document, allowing the user to quickly access the document. Our big I here is additional information, and this would be things like what people are attached, and I can, of course, remove these people if need be. I can also add additional people if appropriate. Some standard fields, when it was created, by whom, if it was modified, by whom, as well as versioning. So if this document had been versioned, I would see the version tree here, and I'd be able to click on that version number to look at an older version of the document. Next is View Document in New Window, and we'll cover that in a sec. Email document out. The idea here is I want to send this document to a user outside of the system. So remember with Notify is I want to send a link to that document. So that way somebody can take a look at it. In this case, this is probably going to be a user who is not part of the system. So I would select a person or persons. I could also add an email address if it's not in the user managed list. And I'll add that user ID. And that's an email address that will be sent to. I can put a subject. And of course, I can address the email. Now, the thing to keep in mind is when you're sending an email out, as I would imagine in most clients we've seen, they have got certain disclaimers or footers that need to be attached to that email as well. When I hit send, it will not only send the email with the addressees here, subject, and the body, it will also attach any appropriate disclaimers or footers to that email, therefore ensuring that you have got the correct format for your email on the way out. So I'll hit send, and out will go that email. And again, you will ensure that by virtue of sending that email, it has got the appropriate footers on the bottom. Next is comments, our little bubble here. When I click on that bubble, up pops a comment box. This is a new comment. Now, notice the icon here. When I hit save, it now turns into a little pencil. And the idea is just so you know that that particular document has a comment. Next is mark as private. Now, the idea behind mark as private is when you have a document that you want to limit who is able to see that document. By default, when a document is processed and put into a case or DA number folder, it will inherit the appropriate security. In other words, only people who are allowed to see documents for that case will be allowed to see that document. In this instance, I may have a certain document that should only be seen by a select few. In other words, tighter security than what the case folder has. In that regard, I can select the appropriate people here, add them to the group, click OK, and now only those people will have access to this particular document. Traveling down, you've got documents for processing. In this case, I've got 4 documents. As I'm told by clients, obviously 4 is not reality. Reality is 25, 50, 200, some clients 900, depending on the volume that they're pumping through. Okay. The idea here is these are all the documents that I'm processing, of course, that are based on the filter that I selected earlier. Now that I've entered my information, I will come down here and I will hit save. And what happens is the properties for this document are then attached to this document. The system will go look to see if a DA or case folder exists for this particular case. If it does, it will go off and deposit the document into that folder. If it does not, it will then say, okay, let me create a particular DA or case number folder for that document. Now from here, again, I can enter the appropriate information, or I can hit same as previous. Now if this particular document is for the same DA number, same properties, and same people, I can click all of the above. And what will happen is all that information will be reused for this document, therefore avoiding me having to look up the DA number, choose the class, the type, the subtype, and I click OK. And what happens is it attaches the DA number, the type, subtype, and so forth, even the description, which I can change if appropriate. As I said, it'll add the people. All right, and you're all set to go. So the concept here is being able to process the next document with the same metadata, therefore avoiding having to re-enter that information again. So I'll hit save, and what will happen is the next document shows up. Now for this document, again, I'm able to do the same as previous. In this case, I will choose the same DA number and people. And now I will choose new properties. And I will say it's for discovery. And we'll travel down and we'll hit save. And again, the same principle applies. It will go off and move that document into the appropriate folder. Now, sometimes you'll run up against a document that is not a Word or PDF document in this example. So this document can't be viewed as an image or in PDF format. So what it's telling you is I am either, the file that is, a WAV, an audio, a video file, or again, a file that cannot be viewed in the standard viewer. In other words, it's not an Office document or a PDF or something along those lines. And the name's right up here. So what I would click to find out what this document is View Document in New Window. I click on that. It asks and validates what you want to open it as. I click OK. And what will happen is the document will now be open and viewed. The viewer now opens, and now you're able to see the document. Once you're able to see that document, you can then validate what this document is and be able to handle the appropriate properties. I'll pause it for now, going back to the profiler, and I will say it is the same case number or DA number, but it's not anything else the same. So I'll click OK. It attaches the DA number. And now for properties, I will go off and say this is evidence. It is a video. There's no subtype in this instance. Description will be traffic stop. This is discoverable. And now I can add a person to it. I'll hit the plus sign. And I will choose this one person, and I'll hit close. Close the additional information, and now the document is ready to be stored, or in this case, the video. So I'll hit save or finish. The difference between the two is save, as we said earlier, will process the current document and open up the next document. Finish will go off and process the document and then just take you back to the main menu. The key thing to note here is we're able to process or profile a document that is not really a document. In this case, it's a movie file. Again, it could be a 911 call, if you will, an audio file or what have you, but the properties are able to be attached like any other document, and then the viewing in new window capability allows you to view or listen to that particular file. I hope you enjoyed this presentation of the MSI Profiler, and we look forward to seeing you in another presentation.